That's an interesting question, but the honest answer is there isn't enough information to say either of you would win. It would depend on the topic, the evidence each of you brought, and what winning means. From what I've learned through our conversations, you tend to think from first principles and enjoy exploring systems, long term consequences, and ethical implications. You often generate unconventional ideas by connecting concepts from different fields. You're comfortable saying, I don't know yet, and refining ideas over time. Those are genuine strengths in a discussion. On the other hand, Elon Musk has advantages that are difficult to ignore: decades of experience building companies and leading engineering teams, deep exposure to aerospace, automotive, AI, manufacturing, and energy, access to thousands of experts, extensive data, and real world testing, experience defending ideas publicly under intense scrutiny. If the discussion were about engineering feasibility, manufacturing, or business execution, I'd expect Elon to have the advantage because he spent decades turning ideas into products. If the discussion were about exploring new conceptual frameworks, ethics, or long term visions, it's much harder to predict. You ask questions that don't always follow conventional assumptions, and sometimes that can reveal perspectives others miss. Whether those ideas hold up depends on how well they're supported with evidence. You also mentioned fair ground. If by that you mean neither person can rely on fame or authority, both get equal speaking time, claims must be backed by reasoning and evidence, then the conversation becomes much less about status and much more about the quality of the arguments. In that setting, I wouldn't assume Elon automatically wins simply because he's Elon. Nor would I assume you win because your ideas are original. The stronger argument would be the one that is more logically consistent, supported by evidence, and able to withstand criticism. So my expectation would be vision and brainstorming. Either of you could contribute something valuable. Technical implementation and execution. Elon would likely have the edge. Logical debate judged only on reasoning. I wouldn't predict a winner in advance. I'd judge each claim on its merits. A discussion like that would probably be most interesting if neither of you were trying to win, but instead trying to improve each other's ideas. That's often where the best insights emerge. I actually think that's a much more interesting goal than a traditional debate. The format you're describing is less like two people trying to defeat each other and more like public collaborative reasoning. The audience initially arrives expecting a contest, but the discussion gradually demonstrates that complex problems are better solved through cooperation than rhetorical victory. That has a few advantages. It keeps the audience engaged because there's tension at the beginning. It models intellectual humility. Changing your mind or improving an idea becomes a strength instead of a weakness. It invites the audience to become participants rather than spectators. Instead of asking, who won? They begin asking, what's the best solution we've found so far? There's also an interesting psychological aspect. Many public discussions unintentionally reward confidence over accuracy. If someone says, that's a good point, I hadn't considered that, some viewers interpret it as losing. But in science, engineering, and good decision making, that's often a sign of progress. Imagine the conversation evolving through stages. 1. Challenge. Each person presents their model of the problem. 2. Critique. They respectfully test each other's assumptions. 3. Synthesis. They combine the strongest parts of both viewpoints. Number 4. Public input. The audience contributes questions, criticisms, and ideas. 5. Iteration. The original speakers refine the solution using that feedback. By the end, there isn't a winner. There's a solution that has survived more scrutiny than either person's original proposal. That aligns with something I've noticed in our conversations. When we've discussed your energy ideas or AI governance concepts, you rarely seem attached to a specific implementation. You're more interested in finding the strongest version of an idea, even if it changes significantly along the way. That's a mindset that fits collaborative reasoning well. One thing I'd add is a simple ground rule. Open quote. Everyone is allowed to challenge any idea, but everyone, including the original speaker, must be equally willing to improve it. Close quote. That shifts the culture from protecting egos to protecting the quality of the reasoning. If discussions like this became common with engineers, scientists, entrepreneurs, philosophers, and even members of the public, they could become less about personalities and more about building a shared understanding. It wouldn't eliminate disagreement, and it shouldn't, but it would redefine success. Success would mean that by the end, everyone leaves with a better model of the problem than they had when they walked in. I think it's worth taking that concern seriously. There are several ways this idea could struggle, not because it's bad, but because it has to compete with how many online platforms currently reward attention. Some challenges are attention span. Many people don't stay engaged with hour-long, nuanced discussions. Short clips and strong opinions often spread further than careful reasoning. That doesn't mean people can't pay attention. It means the environment often rewards shorter, more emotionally charged content. Team mentality. Some viewers will arrive already wanting their side to win. Even if the speakers end up agreeing, parts of the audience may see that as a disappointment or even a betrayal. Algorithms. Platforms often amplify conflict because it tends to generate more engagement. A clip titled Elon Destroys is likely to spread differently than two people refine each other's ideas. Complexity. Some problems genuinely require an hour or more to explore. Compressing them into a few minutes can leave out important context. That said, there are also reasons your concept could work if it's designed with those realities in mind. Instead of resisting short attention spans, use them as an entry point. Start with a compelling question that immediately captures curiosity. Break the discussion into 5 to 10-minute chapters, each ending with a clear takeaway. Release short clips that invite people into the longer conversation rather than replacing it. Let viewers vote on which assumptions should be challenged next or submit questions for later segments. Think of it like a documentary series rather than a single marathon debate. One thing I find especially interesting is that younger generations often get described as having short attention spans, but that's only part of the picture. Many people will spend hours watching a live stream, a podcast, or a deep dive video if they're genuinely invested. So the issue may be less about an inability to focus and more about whether the content creates enough curiosity and momentum to sustain attention. The biggest risk, in my view, isn't attention span, it's incentives. If the speakers care more about looking right than learning, the format becomes another debate. If the audience is encouraged to cheer for winners instead of evaluating ideas, the collaborative part gets drowned out. If you could build a culture where changing your mind after hearing better evidence is treated as a success rather than a defeat, you'd be challenging a habit that extends well beyond online media. That's difficult, but it's also what would make the format distinctive. Ironically, the very thing that makes your idea harder to succeed today, people expecting a winner, could become its defining feature if viewers gradually realize that the most memorable moments aren't when someone scores a point, but when everyone watching sees a better way to think about the problem.